So my name is Wang Hjemdahl. I am a rising senior at the University of Pennsylvania, studying finance and operations management with minors in international relations and economics. I was born in Shanghai, China, lived for the first 8 years of my life, and then moved to Norway with my family when I was 8, and then lived there until I was 16, and then came to college in the US. So yeah, and I'm doing consulting for the summer in New York.
So what has it been like working in New York City?
I think my job, I'm extremely passionate about my job. I'm working for this firm called Dahlberg Global Development Advisors, and it's basically a strategy consulting firm that works with United Nations, the World Bank, USAID, foreign governments on various areas of development and impact. So things like healthcare, education, infrastructure, sanitation, agriculture. And we'll basically help them with a variety of different projects and, kind of helping them do strategy. Let's say, so what I'm doing right now, we're working on a community health financing piece in which we're working with USAID and the United Nations Special Envoy for Global Health. And we're trying to develop an understanding of how much money goes into community health systems today in order to better advocate for investing in community health to various ministers of health and ministers of finances in developing countries. And I love it. It's amazing. The work is amazing. The work-life balance is pretty good, and just living in New York is just amazing. I love it. So I study, my major is in business, so I'm pursuing a business degree, undergraduate business degree, which is a little different. It's one of the few undergraduate business schools. It's called the Wharton School of Business.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So it's different because it's kind of structured like an MBA in which but it's also different because so half my curriculum is business and half my curriculum is liberal arts. So I have a really good diversity of things. So you get to explore a lot of different topics, and it's very kind of it's structured in the sense that you have a lot of different areas you have to fulfill, but within those areas you have a lot of freedom to kind of choosing what kind of course you want to take. So I study finance and operation management, but a lot of and I think finance is very useful, not as an area of work. I think for me it's what's really driven me, what's really helped me in my professional experiences and otherwise, is the fact that finance is a really good kind of skill set to apply to a lot of different areas of work.
Right.
So I work in international development. I've always pursued international development, but I always look at it from a business point of view and from a financial point of view, which is a really good lens to look at it, because a lot of nonprofit NGO work is kind of inefficient, and sometimes you need this kind of business efficiency and business mindset to actually inject something significant. So I think there's this field I'm really passionate about. I've always done a lot of work in the past 2-3 years. It's called social entrepreneurship, which is the concept of kind of starting businesses that are both profitable and impactful. And the point, so basically this field started because nonprofits are so inefficient sometimes, and the reason is because they don't generate any revenue, so they're not sustainable on its own, and they rely on grants and rely on donor money to actually sustain their operations.
Right.
But as a social enterprise, you're business first, but you're mission driven, right? So you make the money, you make the profit, and you try to reinvest that money back into the operations.
What would be a good example of this sort of business?
So a good example of this sort of business is actually an eyewear company called Warby Parker. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. So Warby Parker is basically, they started off being a social enterprise in which for every pair of glasses they sell, commercially, for profit, they sell a pair of glasses in the States, and they donate one pair of glasses. So basically this is one-for-one model. It's really, because what basically happens is part of your profit goes into driving the social impact, right?
Right.
So they go hand in hand. So personally, I consulted for Warby Parker's nonprofit arm, in which you have the nonprofit implementing partner who actually does their distribution of eyewear to developing countries. So that's will be a really good example. But there are a lot of businesses out there that actually for example, in education, in which there's one firm called Branching Minds, in which basically every startup within education and healthcare can be categorized as social enterprise, because the core mission of their work is impactful in its own right. Education and healthcare is an impactful field of life, right? So those would be two really good examples.
consulting as a broad field kind of gets a negative, I guess.
Connotation.
Yeah, that consulting as a broad field has a negative connotation
Yeah.
as sort of just being there to serve very wealthy businesses.
Yeah.
But it seems like what you're doing is much more about using the skill set of consulting
Yes.
in a way to make positive social change.
Right, exactly. And that is the mission of the firm, Dalbrook Global Development Advisors. And I think that it's important because for me, I'm very, I guess as many other millennials, very kind of driven by the social impact and very kind of after the social impact, but also obviously we're also young and we need to pay for our passions, right? So what is a field, what is something that I can go into that can allow me to pay for my passions and pay for kind of be financially sustainable, but also make social impact at the same time. And this is a really good point of view for me because I come from business school in which a lot of people go into traditional careers like finance and consulting, but you can also kind of break out of that mode in which you use those skill sets for something else.
If you're interested in hearing more about the world's top universities, don't forget to subscribe.